Hello, everyone. This is Joe Pusateri, and I am living the sober life. If you like what we do here, please do one or all or a combination of four things. If you could like the video, comment on the video, share the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Today, I would like to talk about step 8 of 12-step recovery. 12-step recovery. So, as a reminder, step 4 is an inventory process where we look at our resentments, our relationships, our fears. Step 5 is when we take all of those character defects and all the things that we uncover in the fourth step, and we talk about them with another person, and thereby admit to God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6 is that we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character that we uncovered in our inventory process. Step 7 is that we humbly ask God to remove these shortcomings. All right, what is step 8? Well, step 8 is made a list of all those we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. So I want to basically talk about this in two ways. First, the very straightforward way, in that this step is really just about making a list. So you go through your life and you identify everyone that you have harmed, and you should understand in what way you have harmed them. And really, the list that you've made in your fourth step of all those that you have had resentments against should provide a lot of the names for this list, because oftentimes what happens is we have a resentment against somebody, and it's either because they've done something in retaliation for what we have done, or we had a resentment and therefore we behave towards them in a certain way. In either event, they are someone that we have harmed and somebody that we need to make amends to. And there could, feasibly be people that we put on our 8th-step list who are not on the 4th-step list. That'll surely be some people, but there should be a lot of overlap. So I say that to say this: that if you need a good starting place, just start with your 4th-step resentment and relationship list, inventory list. All right, so you make a list of all those people, and then it says became prepared to make amends to them all. Well, there'll be some people who are like, I'm not making amends to that person. That person hurt me in a way, and what I did, I don't really care, and I think it's justified, and this and that. Um, just what I would say about that is you might not be willing to make amends to them right away, but if you are open to the idea that maybe one day you will change your mind and you will be willing to make an amends, then that's a good starting point. And after all, we want you to be free, and the way that you can be free is to make things right with people that you have harmed, and just keep your side of the street clean, which is a phrase that is used in regards to the 9th step, in which we actually make amends to people. So you make a list and you become willing to make amends to these people. And if you're not willing to make amends to these people, just become willing to accept the possibility that one day in the future you will be willing. And then after that, you can pray for the willingness. And my experience is, over a period of time, it will eventually come. So the second thing that I want to talk about in regards to the 8th step is a story that I think really highlights something amazing about the 8th step. And so anyway, I used to take a meeting into a jail where in the county that I lived in some years ago. And so I took a meeting on Thursday nights, one Thursday of the month, and then every Wednesday I took in a Bible study. And it was a Bible study for the men in the substance abuse program. So even though it was a religious program, we were studying the Bible, it was in the context of people who have been through addiction and hopefully are in recovery or want to be in recovery. And so that was a blessing to me, and I really, really enjoyed it. So anyway, there was one guy who used to come every Wednesday, and for a long time he never really said anything. He just came and he sat and he listened, and that was kind of it. And then one day he shared something and he began to talk and open up, and it was pretty awesome. And after that point, I really got to get to know him. But what he told us is that He said, I'm not really religious, but I'm here because my sponsor told me that if I was ever invited to go to something like this that's religious, I should keep an open mind. And so that's what I'm doing. Somebody invited me to come to this, and so that's why I'm here. And he began to tell us a little bit about his story. And he said, I used to be out there ripping and running, drinking and drugging, doing all the stuff that we do. And I was in trouble with the law, and I was on the run from the law. And at one point, I found myself at the Healing Place, which is a place in Louisville. It's a treatment center, homeless shelter place. It's, where you can go when you have no other place to go. And they have a remarkably effective program. So anyway, he goes to the Healing Place. He goes into detox, and he says, I was kind of there to hide out, and while I was there, I got sober. I was staying sober. I was doing the right things. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps. I started feeling better. And I don't remember how much time, I think he said 6 or 9 months, somewhere in there. He said I was working my ninth step, my eighth and ninth step, making a list and then going out and making amends. And he said that I realized that, I had a lot of legal stuff hanging over my head and that I needed to make amends to the people that I had harmed. And I needed to come, clean and go to the court and turn myself in and throw myself at the mercy of the court. And so he did. He turned himself into the police because he knew there were warrants out for his arrest. And I don't know the details of what his charges were. It's kind of irrelevant. But anyway, so he goes to the police, turns himself in, ends up before a judge. And he said, I kind of was expecting, just because I've heard stories like this, that the judge was going to take a look at me, see that I had been sober for all this time, say, well, the jails are overcrowded and you're doing so well and you're sober now and you're not causing problems and you turned yourself in, which is a mark of good character. So we're going to give you leniency. We're going to give you probation or whatever, but not send him to jail and say, keep doing what you're doing, son, and that he would be on his way. And he said, that's not what happened. He said, I got 6 years. And I was like, whoa, like, holy cow, that sucks. And in my mind, I'm thinking, boy, I would be so resentful, particularly at God or the justice of the universe, because I'd feel like I was doing the right thing and I was getting punished with 6 years. So he went on and said, I was kind of upset at first and, I was shocked and a little resentful and so forth. He said, but quickly I had a change of thought, a change of mind. And what I told myself is that if I'm going to prison for 6 years, then that's where God wants me. And then he said, after I thought about it that way, he said, it could be a place that God wants me because after all, I know what it's like to be sober. Like I've been in this treatment center. I've been to 12-step program. I've gotten sober. I've, kind of turned my life around. I'm feeling better. I feel like I've been released from this imprisonment of addiction. He says, I got something. I got something that's useful to other people who were like me. And I'm going to be in prison with people who are like me, many of whom probably don't have recovery. And so I have something that I can give them. And he said, I started to become excited about that this might be where God wants me to be so that I can help spread recovery into the places that it's needed. And and you could tell that this was genuine because, he went to one jail and then he was incarcerated at this place. And then, he had ended up where we were that night in the substance abuse program at this particular detention facility. And you could just see it on him. I mean, he had peace, he had serenity, he had good recovery. He knew what he was talking about. He wasn't full of resentment. You could just see that he was in a good place. And I could tell that he meant what he was saying. I believed him. And he said, I'm just here to do God's will. And this is a guy that wasn't even religious and, and was skeptical, but open-minded about, religious things and God and spirituality. But that's where he was. And I thought to myself, man, that's the kind of faith that I want. I want to be able to look at the world that way and to think about misfortune that way, not as misfortune, but as an opportunity that, God is opening up for me. And I really, really was impressed and, and I was really humbled by that story. In retrospect, this is what I think happened. This is a guy who thoroughly worked the 8th step. He made a list of all those he had harmed, and he became entirely ready to do the right thing. If he had not done a thorough eighth step and he just made a list and moved on to his ninth and then would have ended up before a judge giving him 6 years, and he had not been entirely ready, he had not been completely at peace and put his life in God's hands to say, I'm willing to do the right thing and I'm willing to pay the consequences for my actions and I'm willing to go wherever you want me to go. Had he not done that, I imagine that that outcome would have been much different, and it would not have been unreasonable to think that he could have ended up drunk or high or dead. So I think that what led him to that place that I find to be an amazing destination that I hope to be someday is a thorough eighth step. And so that is a good motivation, I believe, to work a thorough eighth step. Okay, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I try to keep these videos short, so I will end it right about here. I want to tell you that I've stayed in touch with this guy a little bit, meaning that like I've run into him since that time. I was speaking at the Healing Place maybe a year or so ago, and I ran into him there, and he said, you know, I've been paroled since the last time he saw me. He didn't even have to spend the whole 6 years in prison, and he was sponsoring guys, and he was going to meetings. He lived in Cincinnati, heard that I was speaking, drove down to Cincinnati to see me, which totally humbled me. I mean, I would never in a million years expect someone to do that, but it just showed, you know, the quality of his life, that he felt gratitude and he felt excitement and he felt a desire to pay back all of those who had poured into him, and I was really humbled and moved by that. So anyway, he was doing well. I hope and pray and assume that he's still doing well, and if not, I know that he knows where to go to get better, which is the reason we do these videos. There's good recovery out there. There's really, really good recovery out there, even if it's not where you are, wherever you live, or at this time in your life. So my purpose and my goal of making these videos is to multiply and to expand and to echo out into the world what good recovery is, the way that I've experienced it. So we'll end it there. I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care. God bless. Love you all. This is a guy who thoroughly worked the eighth step.